Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. Welcome, everybody. There's no way for me to know exactly how many people are joining us this evening, and a lot more folks will join us once this is uploaded to YouTube, but good evening to everyone who is here with us. Thank you for joining us for this public forum to engage with the two candidates for the position of Shoreline Police Chief. My name is Natasha Jones. I'm the Director of Customer Service at King County. The City of Shoreline has asked me to facilitate tonight since the city contracts with King County Sheriff's Office for their police services. So if you have not already had a chance to take a look at the bios for the two candidates that we'll be meeting tonight, you can find those online at shorelinewa.gov/police chief. And that page is up. You can read a little bit about both folks that will be meeting this evening during this public forum. So you will notice that we are speaking maybe a little bit more slowly than maybe you're used to. We have a cadre of interpreters who are making sure that this event is accessible to folks who speak several other languages. So we want to make sure that we are speaking at a pace that allows them to interpret for the folks who are going to be watching and listening to that. So here's how the evening's going to go. We will spend the next 90 minutes getting to know the two finalists, giving them an opportunity to speak directly to the community members and letting them just share a little bit about their background and their experience in law enforcement and answer some questions about issues that matter the most to the Shoreline community, questions that we have received over the past few weeks and some that we'll be able to get to this evening as well. So first, let's go through some technical issues. Just bear with us. We don't often do these things over Zoom, so just want to make sure that everyone knows where to find everything. So we're going to show a little PowerPoint here on the screen that gives you a little bit of information about how this evening is going to go. So what may be slightly different about this evening from the Zoom meetings that maybe you're used to in other settings is only the panelists and the folks who are speaking will have their camera and audio on. The chat function is disabled. If you would like to ask a question, use the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your screen. Note that if you are joining us from a mobile phone, it may look a little bit different. And if you don't have the most current version of Zoom, it may look different there as well. So hopefully this all makes sense for everybody. So only the host and the technical folks who are working behind the scenes will be able to see all of the questions, but we will try to get to as many of those as we can given our time constraints. But this event will be recorded and it will be posted to the city's YouTube channel later on. So here's where you can find the various buttons for being able to listen, see the different interpretation. You'll see the ASL interpreters on screen. There's the Q&A button. If you would like to ask a question, please click on that and you'll see a space to type in your question. And if you need language interpretation, if you click the globe button that you'll see at the bottom of the page down there, we do have interpreters working this evening in Spanish, Mandarin, Amharic, Tigrinya, and American Sign Language. So click the one after you click the globe that you want to go to, and it will basically put you into a Zoom room with the interpreter that you need. So as I said, we've asked the candidates, and reminder to myself to speak very clearly this evening to help our interpreters do their jobs to the best of their ability. But if you are calling in by phone, you won't be able to use the interpreter tool, unfortunately. So let's get started. Here's how this will go for the candidates themselves. Each one will have 10 minutes to tell us a little bit about their experience, what drew them to apply to the role, and then we'll have about 25 minutes for questions for each person. And just for the candidates' edification, if I notice that we're getting a little tight on time, I will give you a heads up. So no need to watch the clock super closely. We are using some questions, as I said, that were submitted by members of the public. Due to the time restrictions this evening, we won't be able to get to everyone's question, but we'll try to get to as many as many as we can. We also will not read those questions verbatim. We find that sometimes multiple people will send similar questions, so we'll try to condense those into one question for each candidate. Finally, I want to remind everybody that this is really an opportunity to meet the finalists. This is not a screening process. The city contracts with King County Sheriff's Office for the police services. So as part of that contract, the Sheriff's Office reviews applications and then forwards candidates to the Shoreline City Manager who meets the criteria that have the desired qualifications that both the city and the county are looking for in their next chief. We've got two great candidates who are going to be joining us tonight. They've already participated in a meet and greet with the city's leadership team, city council members. They also took part in a formal interview process with the city's department directors and with a community panel that had 8 community members who either live in or operate a business in Shoreline. So those community panel members really represent a geographic, ethnic, and economic diversity that's present in the Shoreline community. So it's a really great group. They had a chance to meet with the candidates as well. And the city manager has debriefed with each of the candidates for this evening, and they've also had their own interview with each candidate. So after tonight's forum, the city manager will take all of this feedback from the process and look at it, consider it along with his own assessment of what the community needs, what the organization needs, and then we'll select the new police chief and make that announcement publicly. So I'll pause there and let the interpreters catch up if needed. The order that the candidates are going to speak tonight was chosen in advance. So at this time, I would like to introduce our first candidate who's going to be presenting tonight. Please welcome Chief Stephen Lycett. He currently serves as the Chief of Police for the city of Sammamish. Chief Lycett, welcome to this event. And you've got 10 minutes to, you have about 10 minutes to tell us a little bit about your experience and more importantly, what drew you to apply for this role as Shoreline Police Chief?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and welcome everybody. Why Sammamish? I think I'll start there. Sammamish is home to me. I've worked here, or I'm sorry, Shoreline is home to me. It's a great way to start. I've worked here in 2014 through 2017 as a deputy, and I found it to be a really, really rewarding experience. And I came back in 2017, late 2017, and worked here through 2019 as a patrol sergeant. A little bit about myself. I am a father of 5. My wife and I just celebrated our 19th anniversary, and we just live just a little north of the city. Law enforcement, this wasn't always the plan, but I am a child of, I'm a 4th generation public servant on both sides, both my mother and father's side. So this was probably inevitable. But at the age of 19, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was attending Colorado State University. And as a sophomore, a buddy of mine told me about a job he'd just taken as a community service officer. And he explained it to me and it sounded pretty good to me. And so I joined up and went through a mini academy and I ended up working for the Colorado State University Police Department in that capacity for about 6 months, which is just community engagement and supporting the police officers. A short time later, I decided that I wanted a second degree in that in criminal justice. I was also majoring in political science. And in order to achieve that, I needed an internship. So I approached the detectives division at the PD, and they allowed me to craft an internship for myself. And that was fantastic. I supported detectives in search warrants and collecting evidence and crime scene photography. And I was so invested in the department that at the age of 21, they asked me if I'd be interested in being a full-time officer while still a student. And I accepted that, went to the police academy, and I graduated as a commissioned deputy with the Larimer County Sheriff's Office in Fort Collins, Colorado. I think I always knew that I was going to come back to the Pacific Northwest. I'd lived here as a kid briefly, and in the city of Ballard, or in the neighborhood of Ballard. And my family all settled in the Pacific Northwest. So I headed back here and I joined the King County Sheriff's Office in 2002. I was able to hit the ground running, previously having been a field training officer. So I moved into that position here as an FTO, and soon a master patrol officer. Both of those positions essentially are supervising probationary and new employees to make sure that they represent the mission, goals, and values of the sheriff's office. But it was in that time period that I was approached by a detective at the Burien precinct, and she said she liked my teaching style, and she offered me a position as an adjunct professor at the Highline Community College in the city of Des Moines, and I ended up taking that. The curriculum was community-oriented policing, and I had freedom to do with that what I wanted. I taught for 2 years. I had 50 students in each class. Fortunately, I had probably about 30% of my students were BIPOC, and so what that enabled me to have was these really healthy conversations about what does it mean to be a police officer then in the early 2000s, and what does it mean to be policed in the early 2000s. And we had some tremendous guest speakers that and had the hard conversations about what this industry is about and where we're headed. So I found that really rewarding, and I carry it with me now. From there, I moved into a narcotics detective position at Southwest and worked that for about 7 years. I won't go too deeply into that. Some of it was on the covert side, working with the Drug Enforcement Administration, trying to stop the influx of heroin and methamphetamine into King County. But the bread and butter of that position is neighborhood drug enforcement. It's dealing with the drug house down the street and being responsive to community needs. So day in, day out, that was the job of a narcotics detective. But then buddy called and said, you got to get up to Shoreline. We're doing good things up here. And I needed a change. So I came up to Shoreline, where I encountered a new family and tremendous leadership. And it was that leadership that inspired me to take the supervisory leap myself. And so I became a sergeant, and that led me directly to internal investigations. That job is about investigating allegations of misconduct against officers. You're just a fact finder. You don't make determinations, but you work closely with the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, that's OLEO, and they're there to make sure that everything that you do is unbiased, transparent, thorough. And that was my experience, and that made me a much stronger supervisor in the long run. But after my year there, I asked to come back to Shoreline. So I called Sean Ledford and said, can you bring me home? And he did. And so he brought me back. I worked as both second and first shift sergeant. Had my own crew, and it was time to put my money where my mouth is and see, am I the servant leader that I experienced when I first came to Shoreline? And I just had a tremendous time the second time around. Just a fantastic group of officers working here in the city. To this day, they're tremendous. But as luck would have it, I had an opportunity to go back into investigations, and that's always been my passion. So I went to King County Metro and worked there for 3 years as the supervisor of the criminal investigations unit. Also very rewarding. I could go into that for a while, but I won't. I would say that probably the highlight of that position was being the administrator of the Sexual Misconduct Reduction Program, which was finding ways to have a victim-centered, trauma-informed approach to investigations. Because what we found in this particular program, that the vast majority of people being assaulted on Metro buses were of the BIPOC community, and the reason they were assaulted, we were told by suspects, was because they thought that these victims would be reluctant to talk to us. So that was a good opportunity for us to adjust our approach about how we can build and find common ground with these victims, so they feel comfortable talking to us and helping us go find these offenders, hold them accountable, and then in part connect these victims with meaningful resources through the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, so they can have advocacy and a path forward. A very meaningful work, some of the highlight of my career. I left Metro, and when I was encouraged to take the captain's test, and I found myself as the chief of Sammamish. I've been working there for 2 years. It is the biggest contract in the sheriff's office by geography and population. We're approaching 70,000 people. I have we're staffed at 35 officers. We're a few down right now due to the staffing shortage. I could not be more proud of the officers I work with right now. They are just fantastic. They are fully engaged. We are a safe city, so much so that we have plenty of time to look for new opportunity to engage with the public and establish these long-term meaningful connections. So that's where I'm at now. I'm asking for a chance to come back to Shoreline just because of what that has meant to me. It was incredibly formative in my career, not only in who I am as an individual, but the leader and commander that I've become for the sheriff's office. I would like to finish my career here. I have 5 kids. I have a little ways to go yet, but what on a 5 to 7 year timeline, this is where I would like to be. I'd like to give back to this community that has been so generous to me. I love it here. There's just some fantastic programs occurring in Shoreline right now, and I would like to further the work that Chief Kelly Park has done and see those projects, see where they go. That's enough about me.
Excellent. Just the right amount. Thank you very much for sharing that. You touched on my next question just a little bit, but we're going to ask you to do a little bit deeper dive. What are the current challenges that you see in the culture of law enforcement right now, in law enforcement organizations, in building trust with the community, which you did talk about just now? So what are those current challenges that you see right now in building that trust with the community, and how do you go about changing that or improving that in Shoreline if you're selected as police chief?
For me, it's transparency and accountability, and this is nationwide. It's something every police agency is dealing with. Um, I would offer that the King County Sheriff's Office is at the forefront of making meaningful change in this regard. And the Office of Internal Investigations and OLEO, those aren't new to us. They've changed somewhat since their inception. But these are robust programs. We have a healthy team of investigators. It's grown since I worked there. Again, and this is not, they're not there to make decisions. They're there to fact find and be thorough in their investigations. It is hard work. But the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight makes sure that we're doing our jobs and we're doing it well. So I think that we currently have built in, and by way of contracting Shoreline with the King County Sheriff's Office, that's just a part of how we do business now. So as far as accountability and transparency, I like the direction we're headed, and I'm very proud of the measures that we've taken so far to kind of to build trust in that specific regard. I guess a second challenge I see in law enforcement is a lack of, how do I want to put this? A lack of meaningful engagement, I guess. As a culture, we're somewhat resistive. We're typically private people, and what we're trying to do is find low-level, positive interactions that are not enforcement related with our communities. And for some of us, that's pushing beyond our bubble. But that is what we're paid to do, and we have made leaps and bounds with that. We've been assisted with communications directors. We've been received training in how to do it and do it properly and do it well. But we can always do better in that regard. I would also like to see a more robust messaging system. I'm not necessarily saying Twitter, but more outreach, more connecting with the community and talking about it on Facebook and Instagram and things of that nature. So we can certainly do better in that, but it's those positive non-enforcement interactions in schools, community events, public safety forums. That's what we're looking for as an industry right now. And last, nationwide, I would say de-escalation training and mental health. I think as an industry we can do so much better. Again, I would offer that, especially here in the city of Shoreline. I was working here when Radar began, which is a mental health co-responder program started, and we kind of had a soft launch in 2014, and it really took off. And it has now become RACER, which is the Regional Crisis Response Agency, and it is absolutely fantastic. I had an opportunity to sit down with the team last week, and they have created everything that we were talking about theoretically a decade ago. It has become a reality, and they are doing so incredibly well. The police department is fully integrated with RACER. RACER is fully integrated with the police department. They mutually support each other, and that is I see them as a third tier in first responders. And it's such a crucial one. And it's something we've been asking for years, and it's wonderful to see it finally become a reality.
Excellent.
I'm not sure
Thank
I
you for
answered
that.
your completely.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. You touched on all the pieces of that. You mentioned earlier, one of your earlier jobs, that you had experience working with BIPOC communities. So this next question is along a similar line. How will you build relationships with historically and currently marginalized communities in Shoreline who have had sometimes a history of negative interactions with law enforcement?
In my experience and in my current role, it is critical that a chief of police be very approachable and highly visible. And I think where you start there is trying to find new inroads with your community leaders. And I don't know in Shoreline what the nature of many of those relationships are, but the point is to, I think I refer to it as a listening session, but to go out and start a dialogue with these leaders and find out what their experiences have been. Do they feel supported by the police department? If not, why? Are there specific moments in time? Is this generational? But you start with being accountable for those past interactions. You, you need to find out what the past harms were, and you have to acknowledge those and say, where do we go from here? Where do we find common ground? How can I support you? How can the police department support your community so we can move forward? You also have to increase transparency, and as an agency, yeah, I think most people know that the sheriff's office now finally has body-worn cameras. That is a huge transparency tool for us. It's a third party. It's a witness to every interaction we have, good or bad, and it's memorialized forever. So it's a good tool to hold us to our own standards. It's also a good tool to hold us accountable when we deviate from them. So I think that that tool is incredibly important, and so we've been asking for it for years, and we're proud to have it now. I mentioned the IIU complaint process. That's another accountability tool. How do I put this? It's in place. As I mentioned, the IIU investigators are not the ones that are forwarding recommendations for discipline, but when people make a complaint of misconduct against an officer to IIU, they can rest assured that they will be talked through the process, that they're going to know once they lodge the complaint, the status of it, that they will have feedback from the IIU investigator, and that they are going to be interviewed, and that Olio will be there for that interview, and that they will receive feedback when that investigation has been concluded as to what occurred and what the findings were. That is a critical component to know, that when you call IIU, that you are being taken seriously, and if the officer committed misconduct, that there's either training or some other method of accountability put in place to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And then dashboards. I don't know if I haven't asked this before, but this is something that's new in the city of Sammamish. But it's that raw data that people can look at, and it's available on the King County Sheriff's Office website. It's a little hard to navigate yet, but you can actually customize it to your own city and have that data available. It's not. It's primarily good for crime statistics. It's not going to tell you, for instance, how many BIPOC community members were stopped on traffic stops. We don't collect that data, but you can see things like the number of uses of force where it occurred and things of that nature. So just a really good, another transparency tool. And then enhanced training. The King County as a whole offers us just a ton of training. It's fantastic. We've come so far as an agency. It's continuous. We all have had advanced training in de-escalation and crisis intervention, and we have regular updated training in it. The one thing, and I would offer that Kelly Park was one of the pioneers for this, but the active bystandership for law enforcement program, she brought that to the forefront. It's so important that because of the stress some of our officers deal with, that it's okay that another officer can come and tap them out from a heated conversation and say, hey, partner, I got this. Go do something else, and create that time and distance so that that potentially hostile interaction doesn't escalate further. So it's just another, I believe, a transparency tool. Increased engagement. I found this very, very beneficial in the city of Sammamish. I started the community engagement officer position, and it was the idea was that we would go out and find new inroads with local businesses, with religious, cultural, and other community leaders, houses of worship, and try and find new inroads to schools where our SRO programs had been dissolved. And we found that there was so much work to be done that our one community engagement officer didn't have the bandwidth to do it all. So we built that out to a community engagement team. I'm a part of it. My administrative sergeant's a part of it. Our one remaining SRO is, our community engagement officers, and 2 patrol officers. So we have representation at any community event that we can be invited to. And it's grown dramatically. We just this last year, we were invited to and attended the Chinese Lunar New Year. We attended the Holi Festival, which is the Hindu celebration of rebirth. Super fun, a lot of music and color. And we just last week attended the Sammamish Muslim Association's annual picnic. So we have these positive, low-level engagements that we're looking for, where we can have conversations to potentially make room for other conversations that are affecting directly that community. That we have to build that trust. When at the Sammamish picnic, I was approached by a gentleman who was so happy that we were there. He said, the problem with some of our cultures is that in some places of the country, the police serve the state, and here the police serve the people. And it's hard for us to tell our membership that is the case, and that they will believe it. So that is our new mission in the city of Sammamish, is furthering that relationship, and we've already been invited back for further engagement. And then, I guess last I would say, all of these things that I've discussed, you have to conduct regular reviews of it to see if you're being effective. That could be specific measurable goals. But if you don't have some sort of feedback loop with your community leaders to see, are their needs being met? Like, are we being effective? Then it's time to adjust our strategies and try again.
We're doing great on time. We've got about 17 minutes and one more of our prepared questions. And then if we still have time, we'll get to some of the other questions that were sent in as well. So you touched on this. This is a very complicated role that we're asking of law enforcement. There's a lot of stress involved with that. So what are your strategies to ensure that the health and well-being of Shoreline Police deputies and professional staff are maintained? Specifically, how would you create an environment that really encourages officers to think about things like self-care, physical, emotional, mental health services for the officers so that they can do their job in an effective manner?
That's a great question. Thank you. I think you start by really getting to know your people. You got to know what's important to them. You got to know what drives them. You got to know what they do on the weekends for fun. I forget where I heard this, but recently someone told me that when you know them by name, you know their partner's name, you know their pet's name, you know their children's name, now you know you're at a level, or that you're at the right level. That is so true, for a number of reasons. One, because, for instance, in the city of Sammamish right now, we're trying to build essentially a law enforcement family, and where everyone sees that they're seen, they're heard, and they're valued. And I like to think that we're achieving that every day with our interactions. But at the same time, I mentioned the active bystandership in my role in IIU. One of the benefits of having worked in IIU and seeing these cases come in is that you can see when officers are experiencing stress. You can see it in the paperwork. You can see where small mistakes begin to become big mistakes, and that's something that experience has afforded me the ability to kind of recognize those things and that's only works if you know your people, and that you have the relationship with them when they're comfortable coming to talk to you and the rest of your leadership team about things they might be experiencing. Um, this last year was hard in Sammamish. We had a very traumatic incident happen, and it's most of us are going to take it with us the rest of our careers. Um, we had what's called a critical incident debrief afterward. I could have used that 10 times in my career. I didn't know it was a thing. It's where we sat down with the firefighters that were on scene, all the police officers were on scene, a mental health professional, and we just all talked it out. Hugely beneficial. That's something that's been, perhaps it was here before and I didn't know it was offered, but that's something that we are taking full advantage of now. But that led to broader conversations after that, because we established a level of comfort at the precinct where we could talk about how we were feeling after some of these things, and it's become something we talk about at roll calls. We get everyone together to talk about daily business, weekly business, and we're now talking about, it's a topic, physical health and mental health. And we've taken steps, and I'll be brief because Chief Park has done the same thing here, and so did Sean Ledford here in the city of Shoreline. Built a gym, a fantastic gym. We just did that ourselves. Built out a kitchen, so there's dietary options beyond fast food. We built out our bike station, so officers can go out and be visible and have those low-level interactions while being physically motivated. We built out our I said kitchen, but we also just bought a grill, so I can come in on the weekends and grill for my officers, healthy options, while we discuss things like mental health. And that is a real thing that I see getting traction. We're talking in these conversations that we've started to destigmatize it. We started to normalize these conversations about taking care of ourselves and each other and looking out for each other. And what does that look like? This was a kind of a profound moment for me as a police commander. Not too long ago, I was in a leadership meeting, and one of my peers, I think the world of him. He did something I'd never seen before. He stood up in front of everybody at the end of the meeting and he said, "I want everyone to know that I'm going to counseling. Not for any one particular thing." He said, "I want to leave this profession as a whole person. And I feel like we see and experience things that we're not supposed to in this profession. And what could harm by going and having a quarterly counseling session where you can talk about anything that's on your mind?" He said, "That's a thing that I'm doing." How profound is that to hear from a police commander? And that's led to more conversations about how can I foster that in Sammamish? What about King County? What about the state of Washington? And when I was down talking to your racer team this last week, again, just a fantastic group of individuals. I can't wait to see what they do moving forward. But one of the discussion points we had was they have, I think, 12 employees across the 5 cities where Racer operates. Could we not maybe we would, officers want to keep some distance. We wouldn't want to have or be comfortable probably with having a conversation with our Racer team in-house. You'd want perhaps someone you don't know to be more comfortable with, but could we not have a Racer MHP from Kirkland come over for a day, say on Friday, and open the door for anyone that wants to come in and talk about what's on their mind? And the only way you can
MHP, for folks who may not know what that is.
Mental health professional.
Okay.
The only way that you can normalize that is by the chief going first. So that is what I would do. I'd be happy to do it. I have full buy-in on that philosophy of, I think he called it going to a quarterly therapy session, basically an oil change. I think that's something everyone can understand and buy in on. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. You have about 10 minutes left. I think we can fit in maybe one more question. This one I think is really good for Shoreline in particular, because it is surrounded by a lot of other municipalities. So this person asked, crime does not stop at political boundaries. Shoreline borders Edmonds, Mount Lake Terrace, Lake Forest Park, Seattle. What can you do to work together with some of those surrounding police agencies to make things safer in Shoreline? Or have you done something like that in your current assignment with adjacent agencies to stop crime that kind of crosses borders?
That is a fantastic question. This is something that we do and we do regularly. There's a meeting that is called East Side Chiefs, and all the police chiefs from, and I'll include, there's many, there's probably up to, I would say 25. We get together once a month. In fact, we just did it this last Monday, and the whole purpose is information sharing and talking about what everyone is, what people are experiencing. What are you seeing? What are the trends? What are you trying to combat it? Is it working? Is it not? We all just kind of do this roundtable, and this information is hugely effective because it's very often that um, the thing that I'm experiencing in Sammamish is also occurring in the city of Redmond, is also occurring in the city of Edmonds, and we're not yet collaboratively um, trying to tackle that. And like for instance, this last year there was a burglary ring that was operating between Auburn and Bellingham, and they committed over 500 burglaries in a 18-month period. And at first, we were all working those independently and not having much success. But when you put minds together, and we had about 15 agencies having regular weekly meetings about this, that's when you can really make an impact, start making some arrests, at deterring that behavior. So yeah, that is something. And here in the city of Shoreline, I have the benefit of, because that Kenmore also contracts with the sheriff's office. Chief Brandon Moen over there is a good friend, and we have open communication. Chief Michelle up in Edmonds, former King County Sheriff's Office, in fact, former chief of the city of Sammamish, open dialogue there as well. It would be in that we're approaching the Snohomish County side now. I think that would be a first order of business, is establishing relationships with both SPD, which I don't currently possess, Linwood, Mount Lake Terrace, Briar, things of that nature. So yes, it's all about information sharing and working collaboratively to tackle these crime trends that know no borders.
Thank you. I see a request from our interpreters that we slow things down just a smidge. We've got about 7 minutes left. I'll let you manage that. You go wild with that 7 minutes of time. I'm going to slip one more question in here. A community member asked whether you have worked with your city managers or city council to increase contract staffing and resources, and what, if so, did that get implemented?
Certain aspects of that are, and that's a fantastic question because it's pretty complex. Certain aspects of that are beyond the controls of the cities under the contract city model. We are all sharing resources within King County. There's vacancies at every single work site, and frankly, officers have the ability to apply to any contract they would like. So we're all kind of sharing that pain, but we're also working with our city managers and city councils to try and find interesting ways to recruit people. And there's certain ways to do that. For instance, creating in Sammamish, the community engagement officer position. That officer told me that he was on the verge of leaving the city of Sammamish till I created that position. So it's trying to find creative ways to motivate people to stay within the city. And I think first and foremost, that comes with morale. When I first got into the city of Sammamish, they've been without a chief for a while. I wouldn't say morale was low, but it could be better. And they were looking for kind of a path forward and a direction. And we have built just a tremendous work site. People are happy, they are thriving, they're achieving their career goals. They come to work with a smile on their face, and that's something that wasn't occurring 18 months ago. And as a result of that, we have people knocking at our door asking to come work in the city of Sammamish, and that was not the case before because we're kind of an island out there. And but people appreciate what we're doing. They see our work site taking off with our new gym and our new kitchen, and we've done several other things. We've built a leadership library. People are motivated to come to the city of Sammamish now. People are also motivated to come to the city of Shoreline. This is a fantastic facility that the city has given the police department with all the amenities, and I'm here twice a week now. I have been for the last 2 years. I work extra duty in the city of Shoreline. Your officers here are happy, and they feel supported by the city manager. They feel supported by the city council, and they they have absolute buy-in with where the city is going, this vision for the future of keeping the city of Shoreline a place that's safe for everybody. So I would say that we're all doing our best to try and recruit, and the King County Sheriff's Office has done a great job with bolstering staffing. We had 120 vacancies about 18 months ago. We're down to 64 right now. So things are trending upward. Staffing levels are beginning to normalize, and in which case we can start looking to the future again instead of being in kind of treading water mode. I know that wasn't 7 minutes.
No, you actually have a whopping 4 minutes left. So is there anything that you want to wrap up with? Anything that you wish we had asked that you'd like to touch on in those 4 minutes at your disposal?
I think I would just reiterate that Shoreline has been so important to me. It's been so formative in my career, and I loved every minute of working here. If I am not your selection, just know that your police force here is fantastic. I get to hang out with them twice a week before I go work extra duty, after extra duty. They're doing the work despite the staffing crisis, despite being told they have to work mandatory overtime, despite being tired. They show up to work every day with a smile on their face, and they're going out there and they're doing the work. So if you see an opportunity to support them, please do. They deserve it, because they've never backed down from trying to keep this community safe.
All right. We will end it there. Thank you, Chief Lycett. It's been a pleasure chatting with you this evening. Thank you for your time and your insights this evening, and good luck in the process.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it all the time. Take care.
Okay. We're going to take a little bit of a pause while we swap out for our next candidate.
I've just promoted our candidate. We'll just wait here a minute.
Good evening.
Hello, Chief Collins.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm going to spotlight your video. Just give me a moment here. And I just need one more moment.
Okay.
Okay. I've done my settings. So with that, Natasha, I'll let you do the reintroduction and go over the information.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Chief Collins, thank you for joining us this evening. Just as a reminder to folks, we have several interpreters who are working with us this evening to translate everything that you say and I say. So we're asking candidates to speak maybe a smidge slower than you maybe normally would, so that our ASL interpreters who are on screen, as well as our multiple language interpreters who are in kind of their own little Zoom rooms, that they can keep up with us and translate this information for community members who speak those languages. So I'll do a little introduction here, and just to remind folks, we have about 10 minutes. I'll give you kind of 10 minutes to give your opening remarks, and then we'll have 25 minutes for questions. And if we have any time left over at the end of that, we have some questions that were sent in just this evening for the candidates, but we'll start with the same 3 questions that the other candidate is hearing this evening. So quick introduction for you. This is Chief Thomas Collins. He currently serves as Chief of Police for the city of Maple Valley. Chief Collins, as I said, you've got 10 minutes to tell us a little bit about your experience and tell us what drew you to apply for the Shoreline Police Chief role.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here tonight. Of course. So I have been in law enforcement for almost 26 years. I started my career in 1999 and it's all been here with the King County Sheriff's Office. I started out here at the Southeast Precinct, which is Precinct 3. It's actually the Maple Valley area. In fact, one of my first patrol shifts was actually in the city of Maple Valley when it was a brand new city. When I was early in my career, I got the opportunity to be the storefront officer out on a brand new contract for the sheriff's office at the Muckleshoot Indian Reservation. I got to do that for a couple of years. It was probably the best decision that I've ever made in my career for a number of reasons, but one of the main ones was I was not familiar with Indigenous communities. It was the first time that I had been in an Indigenous community because I am not a native Northwestern. I grew up in a rural part of Louisiana and was brought up here by the U.S. Navy and stayed here because I married a local lady who was refused to move out of the Northwest, and I fell in love and stayed here. So for the couple of years that I was up on the reservation, it is a cultural difference that I had not seen. It was a type of policing that was not necessarily trained in the academy. Getting out and learning how to be engaged in that community, to be the type of police officer and deputy that they needed. I learned probably 10 years worth of experience in the 2 years that I was there in that position. In 2003, I was, or late 2002, I was recalled by Uncle Sam to go back in the Navy because I had a skill set that they needed at the time. And when I got back, that position had been filled. So I went back to unincorporated patrol. I spent the next several years patrolling southeast unincorporated King County. During that time frame, I became a field training officer and a master police officer. Loved it. Love training, still love training today. I was able to train probably close to 30 recruits in that time in either phase 2 or phase 3. Phase 2 is when they're actually riding in the car. Phase 3 is when they're on their own, and I'm kind of supervising them, seeing they're putting the skills that were taught to them to use. About 10 years into my career, I was approached by a former chief, she's now retired, and mentor, and asked me what she thought, or what do I think my career's going, or where do you want your career to go? And at that time, I had a young family. I had started finishing my degree. I had a lot going on, and they said, well, we have an opportunity here in our Metro contract. We've got some federal money to put together a unit that would be specifically for transit-related anti-terrorism. So that's where I went. I went and became a detective for our Joint Transit Anti-Terrorism Team. Did that for a number of years. While doing that, I was able to finish my undergraduate degree. Go Cougs, for those that are WSU graduates, and learned a ton. Again, serving in downtown Seattle. That was the first time I'd actually done police work in the city of Shoreline, because we were at the Shoreline Transit Center quite often up on Aurora. And then after a few years of traveling and teaching and training and doing some other things, the wife decided that I needed to be home more because our young family had gotten a little bit more active. So I went back to patrol. I went back to the city of Maple Valley. I worked graveyard patrol. At that time, the chief here was Michelle Bennett. She's now the chief over in Edmonds, and she encouraged me to take the sergeant exam, which I did. Became a sergeant. Was immediately pulled out of the city of Maple Valley and moved to Precinct 2. So that would be the Sammamish, North Bend, Woodinville area of the county. During that time, I went back to training. I became the PTO sergeant, which is the new FDO program that we use here at the sheriff's office. Did that for a couple of years. And at that time, the new chief down here, who was also now retired in Maple Valley, developed an administrative sergeant position, which basically became kind of the deputy chief position for the city of Maple Valley. Asked me to come back, so I did. I came back here and learned a ton, but during that time frame, I realized there was some skill sets that I was lacking, especially when you start dealing with the ILA contract between cities and the sheriff's office, and dealing with budgets. I currently deal with a budget that's close to $8 million. It was about $6.5 million back then. Realized I did not have the skill set for that. So being the lifelong student I went back to my alma mater at Wazoo and completed my MBA. While completing my schooling, I got the chance to do a variety of event planning. Maple Valley loves to do community events, so packed along that skill set and stayed here for quite a while. Once I had about 20-ish years on the department, I took the captain's exam. And when I did, I was pulled out of Maple Valley and went to the Sound Transit contract, where I did the administrative captain duties downtown for about a year or so. Learned a lot, was in charge of the K-9 unit down there, the detective unit, did a lot of the backdoor or the behind the scenes type administrative duties. And then I got a call from the sheriff at the time, Mitzi Johanek, and she asked me if I would be the special operations commander. Jumped at the chance. For anybody who's not familiar with special operations in the sheriff's office, that's the commander that is in charge of the SWAT team, the Marine unit, air support, our crisis negotiation team. It's a lot of the deputies that we would consider the best of our deputies, the cream of the crop. They're there. A lot of them are ancillary duty. It was a wonderful place to work. It was an awesome place to learn, to manage, to get some inside budget management on the county side instead of just on the contract city side. And really enjoyed my time there. And then the opportunity came up for the chief of police here in the city of Maple Valley. As you can tell by my career, I had a soft spot for Maple Valley, and I was approached and I put in, and I have been here ever since. It'll be 3 years coming up this late winter, so from February, March timeframe, I've been here. Great opportunity, growing community. For those, again, I think I've already mentioned, they love their community events. Currently, the city has police involvement in 21 community events a year. We used to have 22. We had the Ironman here, but that was a 3-year contract. It's now moved over to our Tri-City partners in Pasco, Kennewick area. This is a wonderful community, but in the time that I've been here, I had a set of goals that I wanted to accomplish. And at this point right now, I've accomplished quite a lot of them. And if you can take a look at my career, I'm looking for the next problem to solve, the next challenge, the next community that I can find to serve in and try to move that community forward. And when the opportunity for Shoreline presented itself, I was approached and asked what I thought of it. Shoreline precedes itself in reputation. It is a wonderful city. The officers and deputies that work in that community have nothing but high praise for it. The former Chief Kelly Park has gushed about the community engagement and the people that live within the city of Maple Valley and the support that the city of Shoreline and the support that the city of Shoreline shows the deputies and their officers that serve that community. Looking and doing my research on the city, it is a growing community with a ton of opportunity. Yes, like every growing community, especially in an urban environment, it has its issues that need to be addressed. But I would say, looking at Shoreline holistically, it is safe, vibrant community that people are attracted to. I've recently found out it's one of the fastest growing cities within the state of Washington, and spending time up there, I can see why.
Okay, I don't know if you have a timer running on your side, but that was spot on. You hit the time on the mark.
Perfect.
We're going to go into our second set of questions here, and just a reminder, you'll have 25 minutes to answer these. We have 3, and if we get through those 3, we'll go to a few others that we received from the public this evening.
Perfect.
I'm going to segue from, you just touched on something really important, that every municipality has its issues, has its challenges, and this question is about the challenges. What do you think are the current challenges in the culture of law enforcement organizations in building trust with the community? So it's a little bit of a two-parter. I'm going to read that again. What do you think are the current challenges in the culture of law enforcement organizations in building trust with the community? And how would you go about changing that culture if you're selected as Shoreline Police Chief?
That's a fantastic question. I will be honest with you. The last few years in policing have been a challenge. We have had some national incidences that have painted a dim picture of policing. We've had some local issues that have had questions asked by the community. And in some cases, I don't think that we are always the best advocates for our position. I think sometimes the community members, when there is a lack of transparency with certain events, then people will assume or will rely on past experiences or experiences of their own family and friends, and it changes the narrative for us. The George Floyd incident that happened in 2020, it was a black eye for policing nationwide, and it created issues that we're still dealing with today. On top of that, we had COVID going on, and during the COVID pandemic, many law enforcement, due to practicality reasons, had to withdraw from community policing. The traffic stops went down, getting out and doing basic handshaking and talking to the community. It was social distancing and some of the restrictions that were placed on us. It created a perfect storm to where community engagement was suffering tremendously. And again, for the next couple of years, we're trying to fight back from that. On top of that, we have an historic decline in people entering this career. And then our numbers are depleted. We have quite a few guys that retired. And then on top of that, you're not having the amount of numbers taking the test to come into the policing. So then it creates even more problems with actually answering 911 calls and going out and engaging community and having the conversations that need to be had. So second part of your question is, so what am I going to do about it? How are we going to address this? I believe Shoreline's already doing some of this. I do know that Shoreline does Coffee with a Cop now, which is one of those community engagement opportunities, I like to call them, to sit down in a very relaxed environment with the community over a cup of coffee, talk about issues where the chief of police, the deputies that work the street, the supervisors, the sergeants can sit down and listen to the community of what their concerns are, what their questions are in a relaxed environment, and answer them in a way that the community can feel more comfortable about the type of policing that their department is doing. Again, I think Shoreline is already starting to do that, or has been starting to do that under the previous Chief Kelly Park. I think she's done a fabulous job in that type of community engagement. One of the other things during this time frame is we kind of removed ourselves from the schools, and there's a number of reasons why SROs have been removed from the schools.
And SROs, for folks who may not be up on the lingo.
School resource officers. So generally these folks are assigned to schools, and they're not necessarily assigned in there to do police enforcement. That's what they're often accused of doing, or what most people have the thought process of what their job is, but it's much bigger than that. School resource officers' main job is to become part of the community of a school, to be that mentor type figure in law enforcement that students see that they're not in an enforcement situation. It's one of those things that they can go on. And in many areas, these school resource officers wind up becoming part of the school community. Many of them become coaches. They'll teach classes in either like social studies type classes or health type classes, but they're available and they're part of the staff. In the city of Shoreline right now, I know that they don't have that. And there's a number of reasons why that those officers are not in the school. That is a partnership that I would love to try and talk with the Shoreline School District again about reintroducing that resource for the youth within the city of Shoreline. I believe it is super valuable. However, I also believe there's other stakeholders that we have to have these conversations in order to bring that resource back into the community. The community will have a say-so in that on whether they want the school resource or back in that. But it is one of the steps that I would like to take as the chief of Shoreline to build that relationship back with the youth within the city of Shoreline. The other part of community engagement for me, step would be being present in a lot of the community events. Many communities have farmers markets, they have street fairs, they have cultural events. My expectation would be that a Shoreline patch is always at one of these events. Not just there as somebody for security or somebody there to do policing action, but there to show that we are a part of this community, that we want to be actively engaged in this community, that we can make those outreaches to the community that may not actually trust us, that may have questions for us. Because the only way that we're going to build those relationships is by doing the handshaking, by having the coffee, by sitting, having the one-on-one talks. It's really easy to dictate policy and to put out messages from a computer. It's a little more difficult when you're standing in front of somebody. But those are the conversations that need to be had. That's my priority as hopefully the new chief of police of Shoreline.
All right, thank you. I'm going to build on that just a little bit because the next question is about building relationships with historically and currently marginalized communities in Shoreline. So how do you build relationships with those communities who've had this history in some cases of negative interactions with law enforcement?
Yeah, those are baby steps. That is something that I cannot bridge that gap overnight. There is communities that have a cultural distrust, historic distrust of the police. It's a lot of it can be founded on past experiences of family members, and I'm not going to be able to break that down overnight. The one thing I can say is by being present, going back to my previous answer, at these community gatherings, whether it's a farmers market, whether it's a community fair, whether it's, I'll give you an example. City of Maple Valley has a growing East Indian community. They had a religious celebration last Friday, Ganesh Chaturthi, and it took me a while to figure out how to pronounce the celebration. I was fortunate enough that one of the community leaders for the Hindu community here in Maple Valley invited me to this celebration. I was really excited because I hadn't had much interaction up to this point with that community, and it gave me an opportunity to get there to listen to what is important to that community, what is important with current issues, what is important with future growth within the city, what is important for them and their families, how they saw themselves within the city of Maple Valley, how they saw the city of Maple Valley PE and how they serve their community. That was 2 or 3 hours that I will carry with me for the next, for the rest of my career, because you just can't replicate that type of engagement like we've done here in the last 4 years with the Zoom calls and computer engagement. The other thing is I have to meet them where they're at. A lot of times that community has a distrust that I can work towards building, but I can't do it until I create that relationship where they know not Chief Collins, but Tommy. I could go and talk to Tommy about this issue, and Tommy's going to be straight with me. I want my officers to be the same way. I want that classic community-oriented deputy that just doesn't know who is causing him issues in his district. I want a deputy that knows this is so-and-so, he owns this business. That's where, that's what his issues are. This is what his concerns are. This is how I can help him. And I want each and every one of my deputies that work for me to have that type of engagement with the people of their district within the city of Shoreline. And if I can do that, that's what's going to help build those community relations with that community. Because the thing is like I said, it's just not, he's a Shoreline cop. It's, he's Jeff, or he's Jason, or she's Heidi, or she's Karen, whoever it is. And that way those relationships help us tremendously when we need help from the community. And the only way we're going to build that is by doing those baby steps and being there and being present in the community, meeting people where they're at.
We're doing great on time. We've got about 15 minutes left. I got one more pre-selected question, and then we can get into the others if we have time. I'm going to go back to a few things that you said. You've talked about officers being involved with youth in schools and through community events. You've talked about officers dealing with folks who have not had the best experiences with law enforcement and may have some, legitimate historical grievances with how they've been dealt with. We've talked about business owners and folks who really look to law enforcement to provide a safe environment, to create a community where their business can thrive, where they can continue to contribute economically to the community. Mm-hmm. We're asking a lot of your of officers, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So what strategies would you use to ensure the health and well-being of Shoreline police deputies and professional staff who we're asking all of this of? How would you create the type of environment where officers really are encouraged to think about self-care and physical, emotional, mental health services? Those are not topics that have traditionally been top of mind or frontline topics for our law enforcement officers.
Absolutely. The culture that I came up with in policing, it was a lot of internalization and go to the next call. That has changed, thankfully. A lot of it has to do with peer support within the sheriff's office. So when individual deputies have issues, they can rely on peer support in order to help move them forward with whatever issue they may have. The one thing that I will say is the King County Sheriff's Office, under the broader umbrella King County has been a leader in a lot of the health and wellness lane for a while nationwide. We have that balance. We have the Balanced You program within King County, and that is an umbrella for a number of different services. The one thing about that is it's phenomenally disheartening to me how many folks within the sheriff's office don't know about the programs that are available to them through King County. So how do you one, what kind of programs are there? And two, how do you get the information out to the deputies that may be in need, that doesn't necessarily want to walk in the chief's office and say, hey, chief, I'm having an issue. Can you help me out? So first part, King County has an employee assistance program. It's a fantastic program that if an employee finds themselves in dire straits, they have a number of ways in order to help them out. They have a Making Life Easier program. They have a financial wellness program. Doing the research on the financial wellness program, they've actually got money coaches there to help them build a budget, financial planning. You have mental health services that are available through this program. You have one that I actually take part in. So you have this active and fit direct membership program. So what that does through King County is they have built a relationship with Kaiser Permanente and Regents, which many King County employees have this as health insurance, and it will help you pay for your memberships to a gym through your medical benefits. So that and there's a discount on top of it. And I've been using this program for a while now, and I think it's wonderful. It's part of my routine every morning. I get up at 4 a.m., I hit the gym, then I go to work. So, but it's amazing how many people don't know about it. So this is my plan to do. This is what I did here, and this is what I would carry forward when I at Shoreline. Many of us, many work sites have what we call roll call training. It's when the shift comes in with their supervisor and they pick a topic and they train on it for 15, 20, 30 minutes before they hit the road. I would make that part of roll call training, so that bringing the sergeants in, letting them know what programs that we have available for our employees, and then putting that information out at roll call. Once we put that information out, then I would, there's different websites on the King County, the main King County website that goes in and explains all of this. The easiest way to get that information, I mean, we all live by email, is to email the staff and said, here's the website, here's where you go, here's where all this is at. If you have any questions, please let your supervisor know, and then we can make sure that you get to the right resource of what you're looking for. There are going to be some that no matter how many times that we put this out, they're not going to feel comfortable either going to their sergeant or coming to one of their command staff to seek out this type of assistance. I talked about peer support before. That's where it comes in again, because this is where deputies meet deputies and where they're at. We have a number of deputies department-wide that are involved in peer support. Somewhere in that peer support group, there's going to be somebody that deputy who's seeking assistance is most likely going to trust. I would lean on our peer support group to help me get the word out for these type of programs, to make sure that the information is getting to the folks that need it. Lastly, here in the city of Shoreline, if you haven't been to the police facility, it is one of the best ones that I have seen anywhere in King County. With that being said, there is a gym facility in the Shoreline Police Station. I would highly encourage those that if that is their stress relief, is hitting the gym, because I know it's mine. That's the one time that where I'm not worried about bills, family, the job. I'm just there to work out, and I know that gets my mind off things for about an hour. I would highly encourage that during the shift, my guys come back to the PD and take that time to get a workout in, get themselves cleaned up, and then get back to policing. This is, like I said, it's a stress release for me. It's not going to be one for everybody, but it is a small contribution that the city of Shoreline and the Shoreline PD is giving its employees, and I would highly encourage them to take advantage of it.
We have about 6-7 minutes left. I'm going to try and sneak one more question in, and I'll let you manage the time accordingly. It's actually one I think you can do in that amount of time. Okay. This question came from a member of the public this evening, and they talked about the fact that where the city of Shoreline is, lots of other municipalities nearby. Mm-hmm. They said crime does not stop at political boundaries. We're bordered by Edmonds, Mount Lake Terrace, Lake Forest Park, Seattle. Mm-hmm. What can you do to work together with some of those surrounding agencies, or what have you done in your current assignments with adjacent agencies to deal with this issue of crime not respecting the lines on the map? Absolutely.
Our problem children don't respect municipal boundaries. It just that doesn't work. One of the things that I currently do, once a month, I meet with all the South Valley chiefs. So every once a month, we go have breakfast and we talk about common issues and how we can help each other out on those issues. During one of those breakfasts, I actually sat down and talked to a Black Diamond chief, who those who are not familiar with the South, and Black Diamond is not a contract city for the King County Sheriff's Office. They're a standalone PD. However, they share a border with the city of Covington and the city of Maple Valley, both of which are contract cities of the Sheriff's Office. They are a smaller municipality, and one of the things that I noticed is that some of the criminal element that they were dealing with is the same criminal element that we were dealing with. I have 3 detectives assigned to my city. The city of Covington has 2 detectives, and this Black Diamond has 1 detective. They weren't communicating. Generally because Black Diamond is not part of the larger King County Sheriff's Office family. So the Covington detectives and the Maple Valley detectives are talking, but the Black Diamond detective is not. So right now, once a quarter, I'm having them meet and share notes and compare notes to see if there's common cases, if there is common suspects, and then if there is a common problem between all 3 cities, I'm got the support of their chief and the chief of Covington for them to work together to build cases for those common problems. Coming to Shoreline, luckily I already have a relationship with the Edmonds chief. I would talk to her, and I would try to emulate the same program that we have down here, trying to get together with multiple chiefs to share multiple issues and problems that we probably all have in common. And the same thing with our detective units. Are the detective units that are the standalone detective units in municipalities that aren't part of the contract city system of King County, are we communicating with them and trying to share intel and share resources in order to solve common problems between the cities? I do think we do a much better job in solving crime when we work together. When information gets siloed, I think things get missed. And that is one of those stumbling blocks that I would prefer not to have as a chief. I don't really care who solves the crime or who gets credit for the arrest. I just want the problem solved.
Once again, perfect timing, and thank you for answering that question so succinctly. We've got about 2-3 minutes if you want to do a kind of a closing statement, or is there anything you wish we had asked or talked about that you'd like to touch on before you go?
Yeah, I've said this several times, and this is one of the things that I would wish that was asked. What motivates you to get up in the morning and still do this job for as long as you've done it? And I'm going to tell you what, this is the best job in the world, to get up and to come in here and to actually try to leave your work site better than you found it. That's my goal. It has been my goal for the last 25 plus years. It'll be my goal until the day I retire. I know I have a number of years ahead of me still. I still have service to give. And that motivates me every morning. That's what makes me want to come to work every day, to see what can I do better today than I did yesterday.
And on that note, that's a perfect way to end this. Thank you very much, Chief Collins. Appreciate your time this evening and taking the time to share your insights with us about this position.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That completes our forum this evening. Thank you to the finalists who joined us. Thank you to all the folks who joined us online and who will join us in the future or watching this on YouTube, and submitting questions, all the folks who submitted questions this evening. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. Big, huge thank you to the interpreters who I was watching the ASL up here in the corner. Their fingers are flying. I was going to call it fist of fury. Thank you very much for that, as well as our interpreters that are in their separate rooms as well. We couldn't have done this without you. The city manager is going to take, as I said, all of this information, all of the great insights that have been shared this evening with our 2 candidates, and use that information and feedback to combine that with the interviews that have happened. They'll use the info from this forum, and they'll use that to make the final decision. And we anticipate that he will make that decision and announce it to the public by the end of September. on behalf of the city of Shoreline and all of the folks behind the scenes who you didn't see here tonight working to make this happen tonight. Thank you all for your help as well. And thank you all for joining us this evening. Good night.